Preparations now underway for tonight's State of the Union address on the Hill. President Obama expected to outline a new agenda, including a plan for tax increases for some. I talked to White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest about that a few moments ago at the top of our program. You know, these tax ideas are not going to get through a Republican-led Congress. So what's the point?
Well, the point is, Bill, is that this is an opportunity for the President of the United States at the State of the Union address, when he's before the country on live television, before the Congress, to lay out his ideas and his vision for how we can move the country forward. And if Republicans have a different vision, if there are some areas where they disagree, they're welcome to say so.
Okay, there's that. For more on that, Marjorie Clifton is a former consultant to the Obama campaign. Rich Lowry is the editor of the National Review and a Fox News contributor. Good morning to you both. Rich, let me start with you. He says, apparently they haven't heard any ideas from the Republicans, and they're ready to hear them. That's his stand.
Well, if they haven't heard them, they haven't been listening, and they're going to hear a lot more as legislation moves through the House and now also through the Senate, unless Harry Reid filibusters it, which you will try to do in a lot of major legislation. But, Martha, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is going to be the most dull State of the Union perhaps ever, because we've already heard over the last 2 weeks or so, by most accounts, all the proposals, and they're small ball proposals, and they're not going to go anywhere. So there's really not any point to it except an attempt to boost the president's poll numbers a little bit, but it's not about governing or
I'm sure you want to add there, Rich, because it's going to be very interesting, and the analysis afterwards is going to be fascinating.
Oh, that'll be fascinating. The analysis afterwards is going to be incredible.
Marjorie, what do you make of that? You know, this small ball that the president's already rolled out, you know, these tax ideas that nobody thinks are going to get anywhere in Congress. Why would he want to use his time that way?
Well, I think right now it's going to be an opportunity to highlight, the high points, the jobs numbers, the economy, things that are going well in the country. This is all about his legacy. This is also gearing up for the 2016 elections and looking at what do Democrats want to stand for. I think this is more going to be about ideology for the party, the tax bill being one of those, the disparity between the upper and the middle class, and how are we dealing with some of the debt that the country's carrying? How do we face the Islamic
terrorism? How are we dealing with some of the debt that the country's carrying, Marjorie? Because we're talking about $132 billion in increased spending without any tax cuts. I haven't heard one thing about cutting any spending in order to get to that number. So that's interesting that you bring that up.
Well, I would say less cutting and more subsidies. So it's about the proposal more really spending. Is a $320 billion. Well, it's tax on the ultra rich, and part of that is going to go towards some of the programs that are in place to deal with middle and lower income brackets that then go into debt. So I mean, it's depends on how you look at it. It's two sides of the same coin, but really it's all about how do we address debt, and also what is the statement that Democrats want to make about the disparity between rich and poor in this country.
All right, Rich, from Marjorie's description, it seems to me that we're not going to get a State of the Union address. Well, we're going to get it sounds like we're going to get the beginning of the 2016 campaign. And I'm interested in that. I'm not trying to be flip. Are we not going to get, and do we not get them anymore, a true State of the Union address?
He'll hit on some of the high points, the good news, and the economy is ticking up and looking better, although a lot of people aren't feeling it yet. And then he'll set out proposals that he'll go and sort of campaign on, even though he's not running for anything anymore. The campaign never ends, and he'll sort of set the table for 2016. And I think despite all the talk we've heard about the Republicans and President Obama cooperating on a governing agenda, there's going to be almost none of that. Both sides will be setting the agenda for the big fight in 2016, and if Republicans can win that, then they get unified control of government potentially and can really move the ball. Otherwise, we're looking at a version of this gridlock just going forward.
I want to ask you about the question of Islamic extremism, because I think it's so much on people's minds. And I know that Alan Gross is going to be sitting there with Michelle Obama, and we're all very glad that he was released. I wonder if there's any representative that, sort of represents the plight and the fight against Islamic extremists who will be in that gallery as well tonight, Marjorie.
Well, I think it will be an important, again, State of the Union is about state of the economy, state of the international. For us, it's Islamic extremism weighing heavily on the minds of many. The visual and the optics will be about what have we done to address terrorism in the country, and I think, again, a policy about how are we going to solve it. And Obama, with David Cameron this week, talked a lot about we're going to look at root causes. We can't just sort of go hand to hand with every situation. Again, given the rise that we're seeing, how do we get to what is at the core of the problem? So,
which is
yes,
radical
this will very much
Islam,
be, again,
which
the
is the
state
one
of the union.
Which is the one phrase they won't say is the core of the problem. It emanates from within Islam. It's radical Islam. And I feel sorry for Josh Earnest, who's on our air about half an hour ago. He's given the task of basically talking about Germany in the 1930s or 1940s without saying Nazism, right? It's just absurd. And the president will try to paper over the fact that the war on ISIS is failing. We're bombing Syria. We have been for a while now. And ISIS is actually gaining territory within Syria. So this has been a signature failure of this administration, both intellectually and in terms of policy.
That we're not
gaining, with roots that go...
We're not, but we're not. I mean, Rich is right. The bombing campaign has not succeeded in its goal so far, and the president, would hope, will address, what the strategy is to turn that situation around in a realistic manner. I want to take a look and just go back to the economy with both of you for just one last look here. Here's a poll that's for your family. Does it feel like the recession is over? And 64% say they think we're still in a recession. That's a very large number. Let's go to the next one. Would you describe the country as strong and confident? And I think maybe we might see some underpinning in the terrorism and national security question here. 71% say no. They don't think the country is strong and confident. So, Marjorie, what would you hope the president would say tonight to turn those two things around?
Well, again, I think it's about reminding us of the successes and where we've come. And when we see the economy bettering, it takes time for that to catch up with our pocketbooks. And so we saw the jobs numbers increasing, same thing. So we have to have a period of time, a sustained period of heightened economy before we really start to feel it. But I think, again, bringing the unity back, I think the Republicans and Democrats are trying to, regardless of what's really happening, talk about the fact that we're invested in cooperating, we're invested in solving these problems together. And I think, in general, we're seeing the same sort of disenchantment with the political system that we've seen over the course of the past 8 years, frankly, around the disparity between Republicans and Democrats. So I think, again, focusing on the highlights, the economy, the jobs numbers, again, how are we going to solve issues of Islam that have created, and frankly, people do come together around that, the heartache we feel for France, for Australia, and some of these situations. I think that's what he needs to do tonight.
All right, Rich, final thought, and then we got to go.
Well, I think those poll numbers go to two key failings on the president's own terms. He wanted to restore faith in government, and he wanted to strengthen the middle class. And faith in government has eroded, and the middle class has continued to take a beating.
All right. Thanks, you guys. We'll see how it looks tonight when everybody gathers around the television to watch the State of the Union address. Good to have both of you with us today.
And the compelling analysis afterwards.
And the compelling analysis
that's
that
right.
will come before and after. Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank
see
you
you later.